Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is April the 14th, 2024. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. It's been a Sunday, fun day so far. I got groceries done, so, hip hop hooray for that. Very efficient, very effective. Let's see. Food corner for last night. I made a double cheeseburger, and that was very yummy. I gotta say, it's something that I haven't done in a while, and I was like instantly reminded first bite kind of why I hadn't done it in so long. Also, I had fries, some popcorn chicken, and some mini corn dogs. So that was all yummy, of course. But it was just so much meat, like so much meat, and I like because usually when you're fucking with like a hamburger at a fast food joint, they're gonna thin you on the burgers. They're gonna be not as big. I don't really recall like what's the poundage or whatever on the burgers I use, but they're a bit meatier, and that's why it's kind of nice to have them almost individually. But it was also nice to kind of have like a big girthy birthy burger. You know what I mean? It was nice. In that regard. Plus bacon, me, had to have the bacon and the cheese. So yeah, it was nice. Let's see here. Not much else to report in the personal news section of our podcast. So yeah, let's go ahead and do our startup, and we'll get into some news. Oh boy, I gotta confess that this is what it's like 10 something in the morning as I'm recording this. So it's always fun to do these kind of things so early, but hey, it's a good excuse. Ooh, okay. All right. From Reuters. Iran warns Israel against retaliation. Global powers urge restraint. So, some shit went down overnight. Iran warned Israel and the United States on Sunday of a much larger response if there is any retaliation for its mass drone and missile attack on Israeli territory overnight. As Israel said, the campaign is not over yet. The threat of open warfare erupting between the arch Middle East foes and dragging in the United States has put the region on edge, as Washington said America did not seek conflict with Iran, but would not hesitate to protect its forces and Israel. I think in an added update, they've kind of said too, like as of today, that it's like, hey, we helped you in stopping this mass, drone cruise missile attack, but we are not planning on helping you on any kind of counteroffensive that you guys might be planning on launching. But let's talk about the launch at hand. Iran launched the attack over a suspected Israeli strike on its consulate in Syria on April 1st that killed top Revolutionary Guards commanders and followed months of clashes between Israel and Iran's regional allies, triggered by the war in Gaza. However, the attack from hundreds of missiles and drones, mostly launched from inside Iran, caused only modest damage in Israel, as most were shot down with the help of the U.S., Britain, and Jordan. Followed up by a lot of international support from like France, Japan, Germany. So everyone kind of is like putting their all hands in. Even though literally last week we were looking at Israel like, what are you guys doing? You're targeting food aid trucks, just like pretty much deliberately, and saying, "Oops." But like, hey, this attack that you guys kind of I don't want to say premeditated, because at the end of the day, Iran, a nation state makes its own choice. You are choosing to launch this attack for what happened to you. But it's like, okay, so now these guys are playing long ball and making this shit potentially worse for everyone in the Middle Eastern region. And we're saying, oh no, this is a good thing. Let's rally around now. Let's just let's get ourselves together for the bigger picture at hand, which is now this. But yeah, I mean, it's something I find frustrating, but it's definitely frustrating on both sides. It's good that no one was, really hurt outside of, I think, one person. I mean, obviously, it's really sad that a girl was, seriously injured in, this kind of attack. But any of the like military bases or whatever that were hit, yeah, an Air Force base in southern Israel was hit, but continued to operate as normal, and a 7-year-old child was seriously hurt by shrapnel. There were no other reports of serious damage. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of business as usual. Israel has a very, stout, stalwart defense against these kind of things. Any kind of missile, drone attack. So uh, this is kind of business as usual in some kind of ways, but it's just very scary because you potentially see this conflict potentially widening and getting worse. But we'll see. What kind of heads prevail here, whether they be cooler or hotter. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next beat. We're actually going to zigzag. From NPR, Chicago shooting. Let me run it back. Chicago shooting kills 7-year-old girl and wounds 7 people, including small children. 8 people were shot, including a young girl who was killed in what Chicago police believe was gang-related violence on the city's south side on Saturday night. The 7-year-old girl was shot in the head and died, while a 1-year-old boy and 7-year-old boy were each shot multiple times and listed in critical condition. Chicago Police Department Deputy Chief Don Jerome said in a news briefing at the scene on a block of 52nd Street near Damon Avenue. Police responding to a gunfire alert around 9 p.m. applied tourniquets and chest seals to victims, who also included adults between the ages of 19 and 40. Let's see here. The investigation was still in preliminary stages, but witness accounts described 2 possible shooters on foot. This was not some random act of violence. It was likely gang-related, Jerome said. Regardless of the motivation for this incident, 3 innocent children were struck tonight, and one of them tragically succumbed to her wounds. The offender's actions, make no mistake, are horrific and unacceptable in our city. So I agree with that statement. It's very sad. Condolences to all the people involved. But yeah, let's move on to some lighter news. At least I'm going to take it as lighter news. I know some people take this whole squatting conversation and go, "Oh my gosh, this is like a perilous, dark situation. It's a terrible crime. I'm glad to at least see some places like Florida doing something about this." Blah 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 blah. I think it's kind of like almost like in the realm of like the sovereign citizen kind of conversation. I don't think it's that deep. At the end of the day, I think that what is important when it comes to squatting is like, hey, do you need this housing? Is this something that's separating you between being out on the street or not? And like, if that's the case, then like, is it that big of a deal that someone's staying here for like a little bit longer or whatever? But I know each individual squatting situation is different. I'm kind of preluding a little bit here, but let's go ahead and get into it. From the BBC, squatters take over Gordon Ramsay's 13 million pound. I think that's the symbol here. 13 million pound London pub. Squatters have taken over a pub known by Gordon Ramsay in central London, which is currently up for sale with a guide price of 13 million pounds. The group of at least 6 people have boarded up windows and put up a legal warning defending their occupation of the Grade 2 listed York and Albany Hotel and Gastropub near Regent's Park. Excuse me. The BBC understands they want to use the space as a community art cafe. Gordon Ramsay Restaurants has been contacted for comment by the BBC. BBC reporter Alison Earle, who is at the scene, said the notice asking for food and donations had been ripped down. 2 accounts on Instagram called the Camden Art Cafe and Autonomous Winter Shelter have posted about a new squatted community space at the Albany York and Hotel, or the Albany and York Hotel, whatever. Sorry. Photos appear to show part of the interior of the pub set up with tables. The Met said it had been called, but it was a civil matter. which is something that's pretty common, at least in the States, that usually the cops can't really get too involved. Like, at a very quick point, it's like, oh, are these people doing anything criminal? And it's like, no, they're not. And it's like, okay, so then we can't really force them off the premises. Like, sure, you own it, but like, we can't do anything. You have to go through the courts to get that solved. Which is something that owners are like, oh man, like, what am I gonna do? I'm supposed to just be able to move this thing off. And they gripe and they groan. At least you hear that in like the smaller individual owner of a thing. And this situation is more of a corporate matter. Like, you notice that we're talking about like Ramsay foods or Ramsay restaurants. I don't think Gordon Ramsay really gives two fucking shits. Maybe he posed in this motherfucker, hung out, cooked a dish or like supervised one or something, and then was out of that motherfucker. He does not care. And that also kind of puts me on the idea of a Gordon Ramsay restaurant. I think they're very alluring because I think Gordon Ramsay's like an interesting guy. He's like the Ozzy Osbourne of cooking, and that's pretty neat, right? I think that's kind of fun. You get to hear him like say the F word or something. But like, okay, at the end of the day, this was a project. He doesn't even like, they don't even want this anymore. It got into a legal dispute because it was on a lease or whatever. I'm kind of fast forwarding here, but it was on a lease or whatever. He lost, so you have to keep paying off the lease, but there's no one here anymore. So these guys took it up and they wanted to make a good thing out of it. I will say, what is it? On Saturday morning, two masked squatters wearing black tracksuits and carrying backpacks and carrier bags left the property, avoiding journalists, the Press Association reported. I believe that's giving roadmen. I don't know. Maybe I'm out of place saying that. I don't know. I'm an American bloke. I don't know. But I look, at the end of the day, they're calling themselves the occupiers. I think this is a very noble endeavor. But like, once again, I think these kind of projects and pursuits are kind of akin to like a leftist progressive like sovereign citizen kind of vibe, where I'm like, hey, like, this is kind of harmless. At the end of the day, it's not doing anything bad. But like, do I see it working out legally? Probably not. But I think this is the best kind of squatting you can do. If you're going to come through, like, what do you want to call this? I feel like you can say this is ethical squatting, right? Like, you're coming through, you're taking up this space, you want to turn this space that is essentially like useless or is being wasted and turn it into something useful for people. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a noble endeavor. But there are like laws for it. Like, I don't think they can kind of make the petitions they're trying to make legally. Like, they haven't owned the space for like 10 years or more or whatever. So they really can't launch these kind of complaints. I think the owner can though. So, I mean, I guess we'll see how this goes out legally. But yeah, I feel like this is just more of an interesting squatting case because it's Gordon Ramsay related. You know, you got his crazy fucking frosty hair. Man, I think that guy was like the last guy to keep the frosted tip. Maybe that's just me coming into Hell's Kitchen later in life, but like, I feel like he was kind of the last guy to keep that shit alive. Him and Guy Fieri. Guy Fieri. I kind of missed that. I was thinking about that earlier in the week. Like, I wish they would bring back. I wish they would bring him back. You know, I can't do it. I won't. I shan't. But I wish the frosted tip would make a comeback. Man, that'd be fun. I think that'd be really festive. I'm asking, a millennial, please. Oh man, is Mashable making is being weird? No thanks. I'm good for now. Please just let me go to your article. Okay, that's telling me to wrap it up. That's the universe. Let's go ahead and do the last break, and then we'll go ahead and close it out. We'll get to our Sunday Fun Day festivities. So yeah, let's break some bread. Ooh yeah. Okie dokie. All right, our last story comes from Mashable. Your internet service provider now has to provide you with a nutrition label. Um, it's been 34. Ooh, it's hidden. It's been 34 years since the Nutrition Labeling and Education Act of 1990 made it mandatory for companies to display a nutrition label on food products in the U.S. These labels helped inform consumers of what and how much they're eating. Now the FCC is hoping its own nutrition label requirements for internet service providers will provide that same transparency when it comes to how much pay for a broadband plan. So essentially, ISPs are now going to have this kind of label that looks a lot like a nutritional label would about what are they actually providing you. And then as well as like what are some like things like fees and like ramp ups that are now I think are going to be a part of it. So that's nice. I do think this is a good thing. Let me go ahead and read it. Yeah, additional monthly fees or additional charges, ergo taxes. I imagine like there's maybe some etc. there or whatever. It is annoying though. There are some things that were like literally the ISPs fought to like keep out. So like the data throttling, and I think there's a couple other things that they made sure it's like, oh, data throttling and packet loss. Now I don't know too much about packet loss. I know it's an important thing. I should have like boned up. Maybe I can like Google it really quick. What is packet loss? What is packet loss? Packet loss occurs when one or more packets of data traveling across a computer network fail to reach their destination. Packet loss is either caused by errors in data transmission, typically across wireless networks, or network congestion. So I imagine seeing those kind of things would help you further kind of say, oh, well, this company has more of that packet loss, so I don't really want to fuck with them. And then the data throttling, that's something I do know about. I hate that shit. So essentially, kind of when you're using too much of your data, one way or another, they will say, ooh, that concerns us. And they have like, I believe, auto locks to like just stifle your data. It stops working. Your internet shuts down. It's not as effective. It slows up. It's just so fucking annoying. I have that issue sometimes when it comes to even just doing my podcast over stupid little shit. And I realize there's nothing I can do. I can go to different providers, and they'll hit me with the same fucking issue when it comes to this kind of thing. It's annoying, but the game, it's a jungle out here. So it's nice that there's at least a small little sheet of paper that they have to provide you that at least shows you some of the shit. Maybe not all of it. They still get to hide some of their little dark deeds under the table, and you only get to find out the hard way. But at least it's something. I'll take it. Kudos to the FCC. I guess maybe you can give a little bit of a kudos to the Biden administration. They're really trying to clamp down on junk fees. They're trying to like bolster your awareness and things like that. So I mean, hey, this is a tip of the cap. Maybe check to them, but I mean, they can still do so much more. You know that. But yeah, I think that's it. I feel like we'll call it there. Feels nice. Feels good. Feels clean. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.